I'm Olivia Pedrick.
I'm Alex Dozian.
I'm Katie Rich.
I'm Abby Rhodes.
Awesome. So this week we watched Midsommar, which I have never seen before personally. I don't know about you guys, but like I've seen a lot of like mini clips about it. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but
that's about
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. Like it's pretty infamous in the horror community, at least at the moment.
Oh yeah. I feel like it definitely made I mean, A24 was already popular, of course, but like I feel like it really put them out there because it was so different. But I'm going to just read some of the basics. This is imdb.com. I'm not making any of it up. So, director is Aster. It was made in 2019, or it came out in 2019. It was filmed in Hungary, Budapest, which I'm surprised. And I think that's about all we really need to know. But the main gist, so it's a drama horror mystery. I don't know how you guys feel. I didn't feel like it was too much of a horror. It was more like, what did I call it last time?
I guess like it kind of is a horror movie just because of the gore.
Right.
Yeah. I think it was more like about making the viewer uncomfortable than like scared of like a jump scare or something.
Yeah.
It was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah, that definitely seemed like it was his main goal, was just to make a viewer like super uncomfortable, and like I guess what boundaries could Aster pass? Like what could he do?
I mean, what's amazing about it is like the scenery and like the colors, the main colors. It's like white and blue and like green, like gorgeous scenery, nature. It's so comforting, and yet the entire movie is so uncomfortable. Like the last scene not the last scene, but like the second to last scene where they literally like take out the bear's organs and then put a human into the bear is just sick. Just the thought of that is sickening. We don't even really see it that much. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and like in my opinion, I don't think you really get the sense that it's like a very gory horror film until it's that part where the old people are jumping off of the cliff. You're really put into like Danny's shoes and you don't really know what to expect. You're like, oh, what's going on? This is just going to be a ritual. But then all of a sudden they jump off of the cliff. Like that's just, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, okay, we're going there.
Yeah.
Exactly. And before we start, I mean, I was just going to read, so for those who have not seen it, whoever's watching, a couple travels to Sweden to visit a rural hometown's fabled midsummer festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. That's a pretty good gist. Again, IMDb. So I was thinking, like, I have a ton of questions. I literally just finished it, so I'm kind of still recovering. Like, finished it 30 minutes ago. So what did you guys think of the first shot? Like, the first shot of it's just a picture, or it's just an illustration. I'm going to explain what I think while you're looking at it. Basically, first shot explains the movie. This reminded me of, there's these, like, children's books that I used to read, that every time you turn the page, there's an illustration beforehand that, like, explains what's going to happen in the next page. And it reminded me so much of that. I wish I remember what the books were, but that's exactly what it looked like, which you only know after you've watched the whole film, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, now that I see it, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, again, like, the colors are all bright and happy, and then so is the music. It's, like, not preparing you at all for what is coming, like, at all. It almost looks like, okay, well, not that specifically, but it kind of like reminds me of Shrek, you know, like, you know,
Yes.
Yeah.
because that's like how it starts. This is not Shrek, not even close. So did not prepare at all.
Yeah, and I think one thing we could say here about like perspective is how that kind of plays into the character's perspective, like that opening shot of like the picture and the happy music. It's the same as like the character's like first perspective on what they're doing in Sweden, because like they explain it as like, oh, it's just like it's almost like a play. Like my commune just does all these things, and it's just a fun little festival we have. So like this this painting at the beginning with the happy music can help the viewer like see from the perspective of the characters like that don't know about the commune and everything, like what they think it's going to be.
Yeah, I find that really interesting that you said that. It could also, like, another thing to do with perspective was, so the people at the commune or like the village or whatever you want to call it, they see their rituals and like ceremonies as a play, but the people from the US and like the UK, they see it as something horrific. And so like you can take a cultural perspective and think about like what are they doing, because like to the people in the US, like Danny and everyone else, they like it was terrible, but you know, it's just a way of life for the people that live there.
Yeah, totally. And also what I thought was interesting, like you said, the music and it was so like nice and cheerful. It also kind of like it was kind of like it was from the perspective of the villagers. I don't really know what you'd call them, or like of the cult. So they believe everything's for a reason. They have like all these different culty things that to us are disgusting and horrible, but to them are just part of their religion. So like this picture in the first half, it shows her family like around her dead, which is horrible. It shows all these horrible things, but like in a really nice and pretty way. So like it's like from their perspective, maybe. I don't know, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. After that part, you know, it goes straight into like a visual of um, a forest in the winter, and then it goes down into the suburbs, into the parents' house. Um, her calling to check in on him, and it just kind of, I don't. It really, it does throw you off in the sense that it's like the perspective of just I don't even know how to explain it. It just the leading up to what happens is so random yet makes so much sense. It's like you don't understand it until after all the pieces are put together. You don't understand it while it's happening, but afterwards you do. It's like a movie you have to watch twice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, Katie. It seems like the type of movie that you would want to watch like multiple times just so you can catch all those little Easter eggs in it. And with that, do we want to maybe start talking about like character perspective? Or just like a different aspect of perspective instead of just like cultural and like, I guess, what we were talking about right now.
Well, like from what we were shown of Christian, I was interested in like what you guys thought of him beginning to end, because I don't know, like to me in the very beginning, like I was writing things down that I was just feeling basically. And I just wrote like asshole because he is so horrible. And it was so interesting to like watch her call her friend like to she was herself, like she was so confused with whether she was right or wrong, and how the relationship was going, and you could definitely tell from that call. So like I definitely thought he was an ass the whole way through, but like what did you guys think? Did you kind of were you on his side at all, or like the friend's side? Like, what did you guys think?
Yeah.
You go.
Katie, sorry, you go.
You go, Evie. I went first last time.
Okay. Well, when I was like first starting the film, I was like, okay, I don't really like him as a character, but I don't think he's like a bad person. Like, I don't like him, but he is like one of the protagonists of the movie. Like, I should at least try to be on his side. But like, as the movie progressed, I was like, oh my god, this guy is terrible. He is like the worst. And I was doing some reading up on the film, and I think the director had mentioned in some interviews that the film is like about moving forward in like a breakup or something like that, like getting out of a toxic relationship and how it feels to break up and then finally find yourself. And so that like definitely brings to light, oh, okay, so Christian is the villain of the movie.
Yeah, we don't really see. What's funny is, from an outside perspective, like, you think that the cult, they're the bad people. They are killing people, sacrificing, doing really gross, unthinkable things. But it's interesting that it's actually about a breakup, because that makes a lot of sense, because it ends when Christian dies. And he not only dies, he's humiliated. He has a humiliating death. And I don't know, I find it interesting that, I forget his name. Pele?
Oh yeah, Pele.
Yeah, Pele.
He is part of the cult. He's the one who brings them to their death. And yet throughout the film, I did not see him as a bad person. Like, even at the end, I really didn't. Because he was the only person that was nice to her. He was the only kind person.
Yeah, he was like the only person that actually like cared about her feelings. He was the only person that remembered her birthday. He listened to her when she was sad. He was like the only one of the friends that actually talked to her when she like came over to Christian's apartment, and like they were all sitting around the table, and like he was the only one that actually interacted with her and like listened to her. And like about the whole like ending where Christian was burned, like what you were saying, Katie. I think I think it might have been you who said this actually. When we were watching the film, you were like, she's literally burning her past. And so she like killed Christian. She burned up all of his friends, all of like her connections to the outside world, and she's like moving on. So she's burning her past and like moving on with a new family and a new life. And I think that Pele was sort of like that bridge that led her to a new life. And so I think that he's like definitely important in her story and like her perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I like was thinking too is exactly like you said, Katie, like this cult they're supposed to be the bad guys. But in the end, they're the only ones that can show her like true kindness, because this whole time the guys only care about their thesis, they only care about themselves. And the cult is like the only ones that can actually show her that they care. Like when she finally cries after seeing him basically cheat on her, like they truly connect with her and cry with her and show empathy. And like she hasn't truly seen that yet. Like she experienced like the worst pain possible by having her whole family die. And Christian could never give her that like empathy she needed. If anything, like when I saw him sit with her and like cry with her, I felt like it was more because he couldn't break up with her now that like this happened. Like he was like, oh shit, like now I have to stay with her because I can't break up with her after her parents died. So like I was like, oh, like I couldn't tell if that's what he was upset about or not. I just thought that was like kind of interesting. So the cult ended up being like the good thing for her in the end.
Yeah, and I think one thing the movie does well at the very beginning to help us like sympathize with Danny as much as possible is like how Professor Mannon said, the best way to like get you to empathize with the character is through close-ups. So like the beginning of the movie, it's like there's this really long close-up where we're just watching her like cry pretty much. So that's like just a good way of getting us to empathize with her. And I think it's important because the movie never goes out of their way to like very overtly like antagonize Christian. Like we can all tell he's a bad person, he's doing bad things, but it's never like he's not the one who killed their family. He's not the one who like did the overtly horrible things. He's just kind of, it's like they build his character as a bad person, which makes us not like him. But I think because of that, and because it's not like he's going to be overtly antagonized, it is important that the movie gets us to sympathize with Danny a lot. So those close-ups in the beginning were like really important for that.
Yeah, I agree. I did have a question. What did you guys think about the use of drugs so often in the film? Because like, I think at one part they were talking about how like this mushroom tea opens you up to vulnerability. I just wanted to know like your thoughts on the whole vulnerability aspect and like, I guess just what it did to move forward the plot, I guess.
I That's interesting you said that, because in the very beginning I wrote down Ativan. She's taking like, that's like the first thing they show like a close-up shot on it, so like it's kind of important, like they want you to see it, which is, I believe, anti-anxiety. So I thought it was like kind of, maybe this isn't true because the sleeping pills that Josh gave her worked, but I was thinking like maybe um the Ativan and like the prescription meds didn't really do much for her, but the natural drugs did. So that's what I kind of thought, but like, what do you guys think? Maybe that's wrong.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the whole like anxiety pills, because like the purpose of those anxiety or like depression pills or whatever is to suppress the emotions, but the like natural remedies that she took um, at the village are supposed to like make you vulnerable, so like that's making her emotions more felt, I guess. And so that's like a cultural difference and like a perspective thing. So like in the US, it's seen as being like taboo to feel your emotions. You're not supposed to be vulnerable around other people, and you're supposed to take medication to suppress your weaknesses like anxiety and stuff like that. But in the village, she it's like seen as a way of life and like an everyday thing to be vulnerable around these people and like rely on everyone to help you through your struggles. And so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a really good connection as well. I didn't even think of it as, more of a connection between like how she would relate to this culture more than her original culture. But it makes so much sense because not only that, I feel like when she's taking those other medications, it's it's because of her past. The people in her past, like Josh and Christian. It was because of them. It's like that's why she was taking the anti-anxiety medication, because she was scared about Christian breaking up with her. And I feel like she's suppressing her emotions about how she feels about her life there and about these people. But when she finally sees Christian cheating on her, and everyone is like, someone talked about this just before, but when they're all like empathizing with her and crying with her, I feel like that was the moment where she decided, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, because I can feel my emotions here. Not only that, they're accepted and they can feel them too. Um, I have a question. Uh, what did you think about there's one section, it's very specific, but there was this one part where I think it's Josh, he tried to steal that book and they killed him. But the next day they announced that it was stolen. And I never really understood what the purpose was of that. So maybe was it to reveal Christian's true character, or was it, what did you think of that?
That's really interesting because I was also super confused because I was like, well, they know he's dead, but that's a good point to bring up. So I think they were using it as like a way to like, so they don't question that why he's gone, maybe like why did he disappear? Oh, he ran away with the book, so that kind of makes sense. But also it was like a really great way to show Christian's character. Like that was super smart, I guess, because it also showed like just how easily he can go back on his word, number one, how he really does not care about his friends, and also it showed like I liked how Danny's reaction to him doing that was like really interesting. Like somehow, even though they've been together for 4 years, which I was like, holy crap, she's still like discovering things about his character. So I thought that was like something, I don't know.
Yeah, initially I thought that was pretty confusing, but I think the 2 points you guys brought up are good. It's kind of like an explanation for why the friends would have gone missing, and plot-wise, it can reveal more about Christian's character.
Danny is still finding out things about Christian. Really like puts a new perspective on their relationship and also like just them as characters, because Danny is a very open person. Like she's very open about her emotions, or like to an extent, and then she like isn't very secretive or anything like that, but like just the fact that Christian had things to hide, and like I just thought that was interesting, and like yeah. It was nothing really.
There's this shot, I don't know if you remember, it's like 19 minutes in, where this is after, hold up, this is after her parents died, after all that, where he has to tell the group that Danny's coming with them to Sweden. So they're all in the apartment, they're sitting on the couch, and he's talking to them, and you could see his reflection in the mirror, and he's explaining to them that like he asked her to come, but like they have to pretend they all are into it, and she comes in and like breaks up the meeting basically. So I want to hear your thoughts of that and like why they choose to shoot it that way, because it's like a really weird shot basically. So it kind of stood out to me.
I think personally, like in real life, sometimes big groups kind of freak me out a bit. So like that shot almost gave me that feeling. It's like, it feels like you're like a visitor to like this group of people that you don't really know, which is exactly what Danny's going through. And like just the way it lingers, it's like you're kind of forced to like spend time like looking at all of them, because like none of them are doing anything interesting in the shot really, they're just kind of sitting. But like it's like how when you join a new group you kind of like observe every person just to like see what they're like and everything. So the shot just staying like lingering at eye level there and not really switching just kind of forces you to do that. So it it's a good way of getting Danny's perspective, where she's kind of being put in this setting she might not be comfortable with just because she doesn't know all these people super well.
Yeah, and she like when she comes to the group, she tries to almost mirror their mannerisms and like I guess just how they interact with each other, like in order to fit in. And so I think the mirror was like a really good choice there for the camera angle. And also like another mirror metaphor, Christian telling them to pretend like they were all in on it. It's them mirroring him, I guess. So I just thought that that's kind of interesting as well, and kind of a fun little metaphor.
Yeah, I think that it's a very strange shot like we talked about in the beginning, how this whole movie's goal was to create discomfort. And I think this shot is a perfect example of that, that doesn't involve the cult itself. Because like, yeah, this is an uncomfortable angle. It's a long shot. It's just you feel her discomfort because you're almost, when she comes in, the way the camera is placed, it's almost like you're seeing it from her perspective. It's almost that way. It's not exactly, but it gives you like secondhand embarrassment almost.
I totally agree with you. I was thinking like same level, just a little different, but I thought it was to show like disparity. So like basically they're all on the couch. So I thought like it was and he has to get up and go off camera. I mean, even though he's in the mirror, but he's off camera. I thought it was kind of like showing just the difference between them and Danny, kind of. So he has to join Danny, so he's out of the group, but like he's fake, so that's why he's in the reflection. Like this might be going way too far, but like I just thought that was super interesting. They make it so uncomfortable. They obviously don't want her to be there. She's out of place, so like it was just kind of interesting for like her to be obviously out of the shot but seen in the mirror.
Yeah, and I think another thing that adds to the discomfort is I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with like the uncanny valley. It's like this idea that when something gets really close to like a human form but isn't quite a human form, it's like unsettling. Like those like almost human robots that can like talk and stuff, like those would creep people out just because they're like so close to being human but they're not. So I think like this shot almost has that, but like with an apartment room. Because like looking at like the mise en scène and just like the setting itself, it's a normal apartment room. It's not even like it's a little unkept, but it's not like shockingly dirty or anything. But like there's like this weird like dust in the air that people notice while they're watching it. Like the room is like it's like foggy or dusty almost. And then there's just this one weird like light source coming through the window and it's not very well lit. That almost like makes like an uncanny valley for like an apartment room where it's like this is almost a normal apartment, but it's just a bit off. And that is a really good way of like adding to the discomfort. But it's not like it doesn't have to do anything like scary or shocking. It just has to like get you out of like your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, and like what you said, it's like a normal apartment, but it's something about it is off. That could also be said about Danny and Christian's relationship. Like from the outside, it looks like a normal relationship, but when you take like a closer look and really focus on how they interact with each other, something is off.
One question I had, sorry, I didn't mean, but that's a good parallel. I agree. That's a really cool point. But one question I had is when they first get to Sweden, there's this very standout shot where the car is driving and then the camera like flips upside down. And just that's a very unique like camera movement. So I was wondering if you guys had any idea about why they choose to do that.
I personally think it's like literally just as it looks, and that the world is turning upside down. Like I honestly like it's a completely different place. It's nothing like they're used to. And yeah, basically that. And then right after she's forced to do shrooms, which thought was interesting. So like yeah, basically just her first like feeling when she gets to Sweden is just this completely different place, I guess. So
yeah, so it's like a metaphor for culture shock in a way.
Yeah, like feeling just out of place. This is like it comes back to the idea of discomfort. It's a different form of discomfort, but like it's still falls into that category, I think.
I'm sorry, I just saw that I wrote this down, but Mark is obviously like one of the biggest idiots in the group and just like doesn't care about anybody but himself. But like I literally wrote the fact that Mark is hitting his vape the whole time, like, I don't know if anybody hadn't like noticed that, but I just thought it was just such a good representation of like disrespect to whatever. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I completely agree with you. His whole attitude, it's ignorance and stupidity, but it's not enough for it to not be disrespectful. Like the reason he dies is the stupidest reason. I mean,
Exactly.
they understood, like they just, oh wait, he wasn't there. But still, like he knew what happened. These two people committed suicide for a ritual, and their ashes were put on this tree. And there are woods, there are like bushes everywhere, but he had to pick the one tree. And then he acted like he didn't understand. It's like it's almost like you don't need to understand. What you need to understand is that they care about it. That's all you need to know. And the vape thing, I think, it's denying like his like really his being able to like immerse himself in this new culture. You know, like him missing the ceremony of the suicides, him like just kind of following along with his friends and just doing what he wants. That's all he's really doing. He's just, you know, the stereotypical ugly American.
And just the fact that at the end of the movie, he was the fool and they were playing Skin the Fool at the beginning. I thought that was really funny. It was like a good allusion to the end of the movie. I think it was him that asked it, who was like, what are they playing? And then they were like, oh, Skin the Fool. And then he was the fool that ended up being skinned at the end of the movie. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, and I think another thing is there's definitely like this theme we've noticed of not overtly like making people horrible or any specific thing, but like being like kind of subtle about it, but just enough so that you notice. If that makes sense. So like with Mark, like we all acknowledge like he's a bad guy and like he's definitely not, you know, the greatest. But at the same time, like we all did consistently like laugh at him. Like he was an effective comedic relief character, but we were all also like kind of felt bad about it because he actually like was kind of being an asshole the whole time. So I think that's another good way that the movie manages to like be a bit more in like a gray area with like all the characters, and like it's kind of analogous to how it like is kind of a horror movie, but it's not like there's no jump scares. It's just kind of like this is a scary thought, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I would call him, like the comedic relief. Like I was actually genuinely laughing at him, and I think it was also like I was also kind of upset when he died because he was so funny, and I was like happy that he was there just to make us laugh. So again, like also that was the other thing. He was the reason why she did shrooms in the first place, which like I thought was such a good like PSA because it made me never ever want to like do shrooms or take shrooms from strangers. So anyway, but he was the one who made her do it, and the fact that like they were like, oh, she'll be fine, like from what people say about it, like you're supposed to do it when you're at a good place in life, right? Or like you're in a good headspace. It was probably the worst possible time for her to do them. And he couldn't care less. Like when he was tripping, he was just like, I don't know, he just could not care. And same with Christian. He stayed there when she was running away.
Yeah, I think so too. I guess to end things, do you all want to talk about like the ending of the film and what it specifically meant to you? Because I think the ending of the film is definitely open to interpretation, and that really like focuses heavily on our assignment being about perspective this week. So just like, what do you all think about the ending of the movie?
The ending of the movie, I think what was so brilliant about it was that it made me angry because it left so much unsaid, yet that's what made it so intriguing and so amazing. She just smiles at the burden of her past, yet she's crying because she's been through so much. And yeah, she's still, there's a part of her that's always going to be connected with that culture and with that past life, because she did care about it. That's all she knew. It was a part of her for so long. I wanted to know so much more about like what happened after that. Like what happened to her? What did she just completely abandon her life? Did she um, did she become someone who was like fully immersed in this new culture? Did she just never even look back or think back? I mean, I have so many questions about that, but it is what made the movie so brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fact that the ending was very ambiguous is relevant to like the whole fact that the movie is basically about a breakup, because like once you break up with someone, you have the choice to either stay the same person that you were in the relationship, or to like start a new life and become a new person and like the better person that you want to be. And so I think it's good that they left it like open to interpretation, because Danny can choose like who she wants to be in this new life. Does she want to go back to the United States, or does she want to stay in Sweden with the new family that she created?
Yeah, I agree. And I think overall, it definitely was like an ambiguous ending. But at the same time, if you look at certain parts, like they're about as concrete as like possible. Like she literally let her like old boyfriend burn to death. Like that's pretty concrete that she's like moving on, you know? So I think like that's it's like another way of letting the viewer see her perspective, because it's like she's made decisions about her past at this point, and like those are the very concrete parts of like the ending. But at the same time, her future is ambiguous, because like she's kind of free now to move on how she wants. So those are the parts that are left ambiguous.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking, like, I'm glad you brought up the ending, Abby, because this was such a good movie for like an ending explained video. Honestly, I thought it was really like great how they had no idea who he was. The cult like didn't know that he was, at least you thought they didn't know he was a bad person. But when they were like setting him up to be burned alive, he was telling him that he was going to like the deepest, darkest part of like the afterlife. Like they were telling him that. And they said something like to make up for your wickedness. So it just again was like a great way for the movie to show like how much they empathize with Danny. Um, so like somehow they still knew how bad of a person he was, and were kind of like giving her a gift of just getting rid of her entire past, everything she cared about and knew, and now she could actually move on, because she has no reason to really go back home. So yeah, it was definitely a good ending. Is that everything we wanted to talk about? I mean, I could talk about this movie for hours. There's so many things. Um, all right, in that case, then thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. It was good talking to you guys, and we'll see you maybe next week.